Good morning, guys. Good morning, guys. Good morning, guys.
Hello. Good morning.
Aloski.
Nice tie.
Yes.
I'm trying, but it's not happening.
Nice jacket too.
From Monday, I've been
black
trying to do the thing, but the thing is not doing.
Like that.
Yeah, try ma. You bottom my dry. I say you oh try you.
I didn't know that song.
That's Joe Fraser's.
Oh, okay.
Shishi. I thought that's Shishi.
Oh, okay.
We'll play that later.
It's not a money-induced problem.
It's just something.
Some other issues.
I say liberty on.
Why is that little? Why?
Anyway, we'll see how it goes. So, welcome to the newspaper review.
Thank you, Bernard, and good morning to all our listeners.
Nathan Kwao Kojo Akoto Boateng. So, what did you have for us this morning?
Well, the Daily Graphic says top-up pensions of 2020 retirees, TUC. President presents 10,000 beds for distribution to hospitals. EC to split polling stations with over 700 registered voters. And a sad story, man stabs girlfriend to death, commits suicide.
That story is also on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Man commits suicide after murdering girlfriend. There is a big picture of Dr. Okoboy, Deputy Health Minister, on the front page. Efforts to resolve ongoing strike action by nurses, midwives. Government calls crunch meeting today. NLC, FWSC, other allied health associations to be in attendance. Court orders EC to register NDCPC for Cape Coast, and President hands over 10,000 hospital beds to Health Ministry.
Ghanaians fall victim to President's family and friends network again. That's on the front page of the Herald. And they say extortion and other corrupt practices cited in $150 COVID-19 test at the airport. Aliu Mohammed's son runs from procurement rot at Cocoa Board, and Seydou Agongo rallies female support for NDC's Nana J.
On the front page of the Finder newspaper, 10,000 beds for hospitals. President Akufo-Addo commits to end no-bed syndrome. Nurses strike impedes healthcare delivery. Over 2.5 million youth positively impacted by Akufo-Addo government youth agencies. Nurses at police and 37 military hospitals not on strike. And government supports entrepreneurs with disability with 200,000 Ghana Cedi COVID-19 relief grant.
The Daily Statesman says major boost for healthcare delivery. Akufo-Addo presents 10,000 hospital beds to Health Ministry. MPP poo-poos NDC Zongo Montreal promise as drivers also kick against Okada. Work on $25 million GMPC operational head office begins. Plus, Kwewun Price gets first woman Adontin Hene.
Okay, now the Chronicle. Minister tells BEC candidates from public schools apply for top-tier schools. Government has allotted 30% quota for you. Legalizing Okada is tantamount to robbing Peter to pay Paul. This is according to the Drivers Association. 10,000 beds for hospitals. High Court Registrar transferred over Subin MP's petition. That's the question on the front page of the Chronicle. And brawl at NPP meeting in Takrady.
The Daily Guide has arguably the best headline of the day. Ghana VW is Apotroka. Second hand better. That's Muhammad there.
Daily Guide, you do Apotroka.
Yeah.
You do Apotroka.
Yeah, the LVWs.
I'll tell you. No.
MPP gurus trade blows.
Apotroka.
More goodies for students coming. Nana hands over 10,000 hospital beds to MOH. And Imam fires Mahama over Zongo mortuaries.
The president says it's disconcerting to see patients being treated in wheelchairs, plastic chairs, and even on floors because of unavailability of beds. He said this when he handed over 10,000 beds to the Ministry of Health. Industries lead pack as Nana B outlines 60 NPP feats in Ashanti. We don't make mistakes in land acquisition. Kwans Building Solutions Limited speaking. VP Baumia inaugurates Otia Northern Region House of Chiefs. And Dukia commissions water project for 3 communities.
And the BNFT says only 6% of 90 billion CD imports in Ghana had local insurance. Data usage spurs growth in telecom sector to 74% and promotes cashew consumption to enhance local markets. That's the cashew processors who are making this point.
Now, the Ghanaian Observer, Akufo-Addo impacts over 2.5 million Ghanaian youth. VP Baumia inaugurates Oti Northern Region House of Chiefs. NPP exposes NDC over collapsed banks, says paying customers of DK and others a monumental feat. Drivers' unions kick against legalization of Okada And top Muslim cleric blasts John Mahama over mortuaries for Zongo's issue.
Let's go online. CitiNewsroom.com. Incompetence of current EC is legendary, according to Mahama. He is also asking international bodies to intervene to fix Ghana's electoral mess. Meanwhile, Ivan Simaku says the registration exhibition, NDC's missing name claims are baseless. And then other stories, government committed to addressing the grievances of striking nurses, according to Dr. Okoboy. Employment Ministry urges nurses to halt strike and resume dialogue. And government distributes 10,000 beds to public health facilities. All these on citynewsroom.com. If you go to citybusinessnews.com, ex-staff of GCNet hint of industrial action over non-payment of exit packages. Also, BOG likely to maintain policy rate to protect business, according to Alassane Andani, as MPC begins 3-day meeting today. And COPEC predicts marginal decrease in fuel prices as well. If you go to myjoyonline.com, the incompetence of this EC is legendary, is the elite story. Meanwhile, errors in new voters register normal, according to EC. Meanwhile, NLC gets court consent to make injunction order available to striking health workers. And Okada Riders Association to transport NDC members for free to and from voting centers. This is also on that website. If you go to Star News, young CEOs praise Akufo-Addo for unprecedented youth empowerment. Meanwhile, Amadu replies, Stranek, a Japa deal already under investigation. Mahama suspends Bono region campaign over voters exhibition complaints. And court orders EC to restore NDC Cape Coast North PC on voters register. If you go to GNA, Labour Commission to serve nurses with order for compulsory arbitration. Meanwhile, President inspects work on COVID-19 treatment center and no nurses at major hospitals in Accra. Those are the stories for the morning. Where are we starting from, gentlemen?
Let's talk about health. Health is wealth. So the president has been doing some things in the health sector. If you go to page 16,
he's donated 10,000
beds
under the IPEP program.
Yes.
That's a big story. There's also the strike on health.
Okay, so let me give you those stories. Let me put all of them together for you. So, center spread of the Ghanaian Times, President hands over 10,000 hospital beds to the health ministry, and he says that it's not right for patients to be treated in wheelchairs and on floors and all that, and these beds are supposed to help improve the quality of health care. Now, he's also inspected the COVID-19 treatment center at Pantime, which is a CSR project by the ECG, very nice building. But the main story for health is about the strike. Efforts to resolve ongoing strike action by nurses, midwives. Government calls crunch meeting today. NLC, Fair Wages, other allied health associations to be in attendance. Abigail Ano writes that striking nurses, midwives, and allied health associations are set to meet the National Labour Commission and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission today over negotiations on their conditions of service. The meeting, at the behest of government, follows an ongoing strike action declared by the health workers to demand for better conditions of service. General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, David Tinkran Chum, who made the confirmation to the Ghanaian Times in an interview yesterday, insisted, however, that until workers are satisfied with the outcome of the negotiations, the strike action would continue unabated.
Meanwhile, Okoboy says government is committed to addressing grievances of striking nurses. This is from an interview on Citi FM. The Ministry of Health is hopeful that the stalemate between striking nurses and government will be resolved by close of a scheduled negotiation meeting today, Wednesday. Dr. Okoboy, Deputy Minister, says a decisive action will be made by all stakeholders to reach a consensus. Now, there are two other stories. Employment Ministry urges nurses to halt strike and resume dialogue. This is the Ministry of Labour Relations and Employment wants striking nurses and midwives to immediately call off the industrial action and avail themselves for negotiations to continue. In an interview with Citi News, Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Bright Reku Brobe, said government had set Wednesday for a return to negotiation table with their group personnel. Now, there are a few more stories on this that I just want to highlight for us as we just go through. Now, GNA continued the tour, no nurses at major hospitals in Accra.
Yeah.
And then it essentially says that most of the hospitals didn't have anybody.
In fact, the Ghanaian Times did the same. They went to the Wa Municipal Hospital, and they write that when they visited the facility at 1:47 p.m. yesterday, there was no one at the OPD. From Kumasi, Kingsley Hope reports that activities at the accident and emergency ward of the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital has been halted following the strike action which took off on Monday. Now, from Tema, the medical director of the Tema General Hospital, Dr. Richard Anthony, told the Ghanaian Times that only the neonatal intensive care unit with babies in incubators had nurses attending to them. If you go to Tamale, Yakubu Abdul Majid reports from Tamale that nurses in the Tamale Teaching Hospital and other hospitals and health facilities within the metropolis did not show up as they continued their strike. And from the Wa Urban Maternal and Child Health Center, which was noted for antenatal, postnatal, and other maternal issues, they had closed down around 2:02 p.m. when the Times.
Let me just give you details of the 10,000 bed issue. So a total of 10,000 hospital beds are to be distributed to all public health facilities across the country beginning this week under the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program known as IPEP. This is citynewsroom.com. Now, the president said government is determined to see an end to the no bed syndrome, and in total 1,500 pieces of critical care beds with overhead tables, 2,000 pieces of standard hospital beds with bedside lockers, 4,000 pieces of health center beds with bedside lockers, and 1,000 pieces of children's cots and 1,500 pieces of delivery beds have been bought at a ceremony in Burma camp where the beds are being housed. The president stated that the beds, which are to be distributed to all 275 constituencies, are adjustable for better positioning of the patient's head and feet. And he says this will allow for better movement of patients as well as periodic change to the pressure points on the body, thereby improving the patient's blood circulation while they are in bed, adding that they will maximize comfort for patients who will use them for extended periods.
Now, you mentioned pressure, and there's a report in the Finder that pressure is yet to mount at the 37 military hospital and police hospitals, despite the nationwide strike. Now, these hospitals have their nurses working, and a lot of hospitals are referring patients to them. And the Finder says when they visited the hospitals, activities were ongoing, nurses were at post, and at the 37 military hospital, Joycelyn, who brought her mother for treatment, after being referred from the Insawam hospital, said that they had gone through the processes and the mother was going to get treatment. So that's the update from those hospitals.
All right, Nathan.
Let's talk about the EC now, and that's also occupying a lot of spaces in the papers. And EC to split polling stations with over 700 registered voters. So the story says all polling stations with more than 700 names on their voters register will be split into two, A and B, for the December 7 general election. That's according to the Electoral Commission. The decision, it explained, was to ensure that long queues were reduced at those polling stations, which number 6,000. A deputy commissioner of the EC, Dr. Bosman Eric Asari, who made this known at the 2020 Star Ghana Foundation Core Learning Event Center in Accra yesterday, added that the decision was in line with COVID-19 safety protocols.
There's a lot of NDC Mahama comments on the EC. So if you go, for example, to citynewsroom.com, there are two stories there. Incompetence of current EC is legendary. Mahama is asking international bodies to intervene to fix Ghana's electoral mess. NDC's head of elections is accusing the EC. So many stories. Let me just give you a flavor of this. Former President John Mahama and flag bearer of the NDC has called on international community to, as a matter of urgency, intervene in the electoral processes in Ghana. He says they must take a keen interest in current happenings, which he described as chaotic. It follows allegations of electoral irregularities recorded in the ongoing voter exhibition exercise amid reports of missing names of voters on the register. The former President Mahama and his running mate Professor Jena Nopokwajiman have both cut short their regional campaigns as a result of the issues being faced with the provisional register. Addressing a rally in the Bono region before the suspension, John Mahama said the Electoral Commission should be held accountable should the country plunge into a state of turmoil. Now, let me give you two reactions. On the same citynewsroom.com, there's a reaction from the MPP, who are basically saying that these allegations are baseless. Director of Elections of MPP, Vincent Maku, says his party is waiting for the end of the voter exhibition exercise before concluding on the claims of irregularities in the electoral process. Speaking on Eyewitness News, Mr. Nimaku said the NDC can go ahead with their continuous allegations. For me, they are baseless, they have no merit, we shouldn't give it attention. Now, if you go to myjoyonline.com, they quote the EC's Director of Elections, who says the errors in the new voters register are normal. So this is the story. The Electoral Commission says there will not be the need for a voters registration exhibition if the registration process was a perfect process. AC's Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Sribo Kweku, in an interview on Joy FM Tuesday, said such problems are known to crop up during every registration exercise. These are subsequently rectified during the exhibition stage of the process. Exhibition is part of voter registration. You cannot talk of a final register without exhibition. So they are all part of the process, he said.
Let me take you to education. Good news, 30% of spaces in schools are being left for children from public schools. That is according to the story. Now, the story by Richard Oswe-Chan says that the Deputy Minister for Education, Dr. Osei Edichum, has charged students from public schools who sat for the Basic Education Certificate examination to select top-tier senior high schools in Ghana ahead of their entry into the second cycle institutions. According to him, the government had allocated 30% admission quota to the students coming from the government schools, and that they can also choose the Wesley Girls, the Bree Girls, the St. Louis, the Yasanto, and the other high-ranking schools. He noted that majority of final year students from public schools do not apply to these top schools for fear that they will not gain admission. And the Deputy Minister said this when he paid a working visit to some selected centers in the Ashanti region, naming Achina Senior High School, St. George's Senior High School, Mighty Japas, among others. Now, the other news is that, remember the Human Capital Index we discussed the other time? There's a new report which indicates that Ghana is making gains. The last report had us at 44. Now we're at 45. Years in school used to be 11 years and some months. Now it's over 12 years. Adjusted time in school used to be 5 years. Now it's about 6 years. So we are making some slight gains which we must build on in this particular period.
Later, Apotoka.
Yes, you want the Apochoka story. That's the Daily Guide. That's on the third page of the Daily Guide. Now, story is written by Ernest Kofi Edu, and he says, former President John Dramani Mahama has started ridiculing the efforts made by the MPP government to convince global car manufacturing giant VW to establish one of its assembling plants in Ghana. He cynically described it as Apotro plant, claiming it was because of the initiative that the government was banning the importation of all second-hand vehicles. And there's a quote. It says, they said they had brought Apotro car assembling plant, and because of that, they say they will not allow anybody to import home second-hand cars into the country. They say when you bring it in, you pay 35% of the fees instead of the 10% we used to charge, end quote. He said on a campaign tour in the Tyne constituency.
The
graphic leads with the TUC story. Nathan, I want you
There's a driver union story here. Let me give that to you, then we take the TUC. Drivers' unions kick against legalization of Okada. And the Ghanaian Observer says the Concerned Drivers Association says Okada legalization will create havoc and mayhem on the roads for both professional and private drivers. With membership from GPRTU, Protour, Tiger, Cooperative, Committed and Concerned Drivers Association, the group said it will not sit aloof for the opposition, NDC, or any political party to legalize Okada.
There's actually another story that says, that group says legalizing Okada is like robbing Peter
to pay Paul. That's also here in the Chronicle.
So
it's basically the same story, same angle.
Well, but some people say they'll give Mahama free ride and NDC people free ride. If you go to Citi Newsroom, we ensure Mahama wins 2020 polls according to Okada Riders Association. And then there's another story that is on My Joy Online, where the riders are basically saying they will provide transportation to NDC members for free to and from voting centers. So it's a lot of Okada issues still there.
Well, if you go to the front page of the Daily Graphic, it says the Trades Union Congress has called on the government to take liability for the shortage in the payment of lump sum to pensioners who started retiring from this year under the new pensions law, the National Pensions Act 2008, Act 766. The Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Yalba, made the call in an interview with the Daily Graphic in Ho yesterday on the sidelines of the Volta Uti Regional Council Forum on pensions.
There's an interesting story coming from Takrady. And Bernard, let me share the story with you. Brawl at NPP meeting in Takrady.
The one they beat somebody's hand.
Yes, and the issues that came up from that particular meeting. So the story from Kwesi Alfred Adams in the Chronicle says that the meeting held for parliamentary candidates of the NPP at Kingstel Hotel in the Western region to strategize on how to win more votes and seats allegedly turned into an exchange of blows. The development came as a shock to Mr. Peter Mark-Menu, former national chairman of the party, and Lord Comey, who were present. The information available to the Chronicle indicates that the confusion started when the Member of Parliament for Takwa Nsayem, George Mirikuduka, drew the attention of the national executives of the party to the alleged support being offered an independent candidate who is contesting him by some of the regional executives. He went further to mention the name of Mr. Charles Bissiu, a presidential staffer and Western Regional Secretary of the party, as the person sponsoring the independent candidate against him. Mirikuduka told the meeting that he had exhausted all avenues within the party to call Bissiu to order, but the latter would not listen to him. Based on the accusation, Mr. Lord Comey, who was moderating the meeting, reportedly handed over the microphone to the presidential staffer to respond. Bissiu, in his response, did not deny or confirm the accusation, but marched straight towards his accuser, ostensibly to attack him physically.
Wow.
Before the attack, BCU reportedly told the meeting that Duka, the MP, used to be his good friend and that he had told him certain things about the party that he did not like, and that at a certain point, he, Duka, even advised that the two should go and do galamsey. And sensing that the atmosphere was not good, Mr. Lord Kome quickly took the microphone away from the furious Charles BCU. But the latter still walked to Duka and reportedly retorted, "Today I'll beat you." But before members could come to terms with what was happening, BCU had already thrown a punch. In an attempt to block the punch, the MP's finger entered BCU's mouth, who reportedly bit him. The members who attended the meeting, including Miracle Duka, are tight-lipped over the issue, but sources close to Duka confirmed the story. And according to the source, Miracle Duka left the meeting after the incident to a private clinic to have his finger stitched. And the source mentioned the private hospital as Jemima Clinic at Anaji in Takrady.
All right, we have time for a few more stories.
Well, that's something on Neoplan Ghana Limited.
Okay, let's go
Now,
there.
the government is finalizing processes to give away its 40% stake in Neoplan Ghana Limited following interventions made early this year from stopping the company from collapse. The company was supposed to shut down in January this year because it was no longer viable. However, the government subsequently pulled the brakes on the processes to get the company to close down. Providing updates on the troubled company, Director General of State Interest and Governance Authority, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, said the government intended to recapitalize the company by ceding 40% of its 55% stake in the firm.
Hey, this one too.
Well, I mean, anyway, so we will finally end with the MPC meeting. The Bank of Ghana is having a monetary policy committee meeting today, and it's a 3-day meeting to assess the economy. And that story is on citybusinessnews.com. It says the MPC of the Bank of Ghana is scheduled to begin its regular meetings from today, Tuesday, September 22, through to Friday, September 25. The 96th meeting of the MPC is to review developments in the economy and take the necessary steps to ensure financial and economic stability. We'll be following that story and bring you some highlights during the business news. That was the newspaper review. Thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Kojo. Coming up next is the City Business News.
This is the City Breakfast Show, the city's biggest conversation.